let's move on to US style. You
Mhm.
US style. I mean, to me, that's the Martian, bright
You know,
stars style.
so let me tell it differently. So the US style or the USA is always something special. Let me say on that word. You have the rest of the world and you have the US guys. So um,
Yeah, we want a
I went
Brazil style.
there.
We want to be special.
Yeah, I went there for many years. You know, we have a company there in Florida where we sell our products in the US, and I went to the shows and I see these blue light things, and I even was at Cherry Course, and these guys when they started and we looked off the tank, and they working from beginning on more with blue lamps as we do in Europe. And the first years I must say, I really hate it because we were SPS guys and they have mostly LPS, and we started with breaking up the green slimer and this type cores what we breed and tried to breed them, and all was full of light, these things. And then we go to the USA, was only the LPS, which we cannot get during that time. So it's what was interesting, but 3 days with this blue light, I had headache. And I don't know why. After 8-9 years, I worked there and I speak with the people, oh, how you deal it, how you dose it. And everybody tell me completely different things. So they're all lying because they have, today I know that they had no idea what they do. There was a little bit of luck. And so they all telling, you know, it's today, we are the best country in the world and the biggest one. So all is wrong, but they think, and okay, let them think about, I don't care today. And the point is that from one day to the next, I had a little bit time and I'm walking over the show, and from one day to the next, I like it. Maybe I had the time to look deeper in these small poly parts or whatever, and nobody in the USA give an idea how to keep this type of tanks, how to get the fluorescence. And so I tried to find out how would be when we mix the things together. Have the grow, have the fluorescent, and how the fluorescent is working. So I work here in Germany with a guy, which is my friend till we are 10 years old, and he has also a company in the marine business, and he's extremely well knowledge about these very deep biological structures in coral. So which chromoproteins working, which type of elements for getting things, and we have many talks and fights with that. So meanwhile, I understand also a little bit, but he goes really deep in these genetical codes of corals, and for me it's too much, but it's okay. And so I had the idea to create a system to bring these type of frags and fluorescent reef keeping to Europe. That was the idea behind. And so I creating a US style system. And in fact, it's the first worldwide because nobody in the US ever noted down how to keep. Everybody's telling is a secret, but nobody's telling to the people who wants to start how it goes. So. And I said, why not? So we can be transparent like we be with all our products. I said, do it on that way. This is inside, and then you can keep it. So, and there we work differently with products. So some of the products we use for that are high protein or contain these organic compounds which the coral need to producing the help fluorescence and the protecting fluorescence. So, cause you know exactly when you have a reef tank with full lighting and you do then blue light, you have also some corals glowing. And the corals are able, simple explain, to produce protecting fluorescent, and they produce help fluorescent. That means from the energy rich blue light, they turn the color, send it back to the cores, and can take the energy a second time. Mostly these cores happens, which I find also in the Philippines, some cores falling down in a depth of 50, 60 meters, and they glowing orange. When I was there, they say, wow. So I keep the cores up on the top, and then it's brown. So, okay. that is the idea behind these full color, pure fluorescent situation to, let me say,
Can we say
habitat about
it's more
30 meters. Yeah.
yeah. We like that. We love that. But can we say it's like
Everybody
more,
loves it.
it's more aquashella like, and a
Yeah,
little bit
everybody loves
less than dive site like.
But you cannot believe what shitstorms and trouble I had in Europe and in Germany about that when I write this down. So it's unbelievable. This is impossible. All the corals died. Why creating completely new system? And I write them. I don't know if you don't understand, but 90% of the world making reef keeping on that way. We are the only one who keeps the 10,000 watts on a tank. But within 2 years, many people coming there, going to the stores and say, hey, we want this type of corals. And meanwhile, we do same like in the US also. So the US creating the last 5 years more and more in SPS. So they learned it, how to keep the SPS way. And we learned how to keep the LPS way. So it comes more together, even also to Facebook and that the people looking on the other continents. So
yeah, by the way, in terms of trace element or replenishment and those we all from this group have been using USA style recipes. Let's say, I understand it's a bit a little heavier on trace. Actually, twice the amount of trace element, isn't that?
Maybe I want to explain why I did it on that way. Fauna Marine never make products, and this was never the intention that we have a success from beginning on. This was always the intention to have a reef tank over years. Mm-hmm. And I come from a time where we have time for it. So I must say, when I go catching fish, that was too much stress for me, waiting 4 hours for the fish. So that's why I go to reef tank, so I can wait years. We starting slowly, we bring the live rock in, then we put the lights, then we starting with soft cores, then we remove them, then we go to the next. This is how I start reef keeping with Mr. Wilkins. I don't know if it's somebody knows in Brazil, but Wilkins was the god of starting reef keeping in the 17th. So he was the guy who was one of the first breeding a coral, keep them over a longer time alive. And I was 12, 14 years old when I meet him and I work with him, and I was in his shop and I sell some of his products. So that's why Wilkins is here in Europe. It's the master of all. Yeah, today it's like Muhammad Ali today for every boxing friend. So and he's dead since long time, but the base rules and the way how to keep a reef tank are still today the way we have to go.
So his philosophy remains here.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, like Maradona, how to play football. Whatever he make after it, and we have Messi, we have some others. They creating the standard from the base where all others going on top. So this we must say, and it's okay. I like him very much. And today we have a little bit of problem that today everything must be very easy. So all-in-one product, everything must be easy, and nobody wants to hear about you have to do that and that, and it's too complicated. And the world is complicated, and I don't like it. And that creates a lot of issues, because reef keeping are the hardest animal, the hardest home animals you can hold. All other type of animals are more easy to keep, let me say, longer than 2-3 months. And I think it is necessary that we take care of that what we hold at home. We need to learn it, and we need to try our best to keep them alive. This is necessary, but we need fun to do that. That's why we need this type of difference. So when I put Berling Light at the beginning, I create the system like that we go in limitation. if you start with Balling Light and you use the Balling Light ground, you start a reef, there's no much animals in, you keep it, and then over the time, the tank lowers. Like you plant in the garden. After you see that, you buy a little bit fertilizer, you give the fertilizers, and the plant can grow over years and is good. What you never do in life, and no farmer will do it, they over-fertilize it not from beginning on. If the corn is small, they do a little bit. If the corn is big, they give it a little bit more. But no one do that because they know one times over-fertilized, the plants are dead. And it's exactly the same in reef. Exactly. Reefs and cores known to go in limitation. They have all in the body, they can work with that situation when they go in limitation. But none of them can work if they go higher. And I can also explain why. In the most cores, we have bacteria living in the cells of the cores.
Yeah.
And this type of bacteria will be pressured down due to the core by self. So they are in, but they don't make problems. As soon as the nutrients go too high, this type of bacteria and type of dinoflagellates, which called claden, which are different groups, they starting to grow too fast, bind then all the amino acids and vitamins and organic structure in the cells and block the core. And after that, they died. And that's our main issue, what we have. That's the microbiome, so the bacteria outside of the cores, and the bacteria which are living inside the cores in the cells. And that's, if you think about a little bit.
What today, like scientists call the holobiome.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same what we have. That's the same, exactly the same what we have. If our biome, the skin or the stomach, if you have problems with your stomach, come on, you have a really bad day. So you can have a little bit, you can have your arm injured, you can go to work and you can think and look TV. But really, when you have problems with your bacteria, you know what these are for days. Nobody wants to talk about it. Yeah? And that's, and
actually, human being, a human being has more bacteria cells than human cells.
Yes.
So that's the point.
If our bacteria are dead, we are dead. If our bacteria are good, we are good. And that's the same for the core, nothing else. And that's why it is so important to go in limitation and give them a little bit of food and then the next step.
Let me see if I understand that. I will take it strictly to, let's say, one example. For if we are in the US style. The coral wants iodine, for example, as a halogen. We might offer iodine, maybe a little bit more than on the other styles, but we never want the tank to have high iodine in the water. But we will offer, he will take it, the zeolites and everything will keep it low. As soon as we offer, the coral will take it, but it should not remain in the water. That's the idea.
Yeah, it's the same, like I said, it's the same in plants, or the same that we do. A plant which grows very fast, we need more fertilizer than a plant which grows very low. Now we have the situation that we must bring the coral to creating two type of colors, two type of fluorescence. So she must she must build up the proteins. Then we have a lower light at all, the blue light, and that's a wrong idea. In US style, we start with white light, so we use only 5 hours, 5 hours and a half. We use a growing light situation. So, and this is also the time how the photosynthesis in cores work. After that time, the cores need to protect and starting to creating energy in protecting. So she cannot use 12 hours long full light. You can also give 16 hours. The only thing what it needs, the cores needs more energy to protect from light. Then we do it that she's sitting down in 30 meters or 40 meters, which is a blue coloration. And now we have a problem. In the sea, we have a lot of food. We working with water parameters from laboratories which say this is in water. Like, let me say as 60 ppm iodine. So on the other side, the coral, when they eat food, they get all the trace elements also inside the body and use that. But this is not what you can detect in the water. And the mistake is to think about it. When I say that we have 2 micrograms of zinc in the water, that means that the coral needs 2 micrograms of zinc overall. In nature,
absolutely, that's the
we
idea I'm
have
getting.
15 kilogram food by 1 square meter of reef. That was a study. They take in all the reef around the world. They make an average. There was a 10-meter block height, 1 by 1 meter, 10 meter high, and they detect how many available food is in that type of water in a mixture of all reefs. They study about 1,500 reefs, and they take all together. So, and in these 10 meters, so in these 10K liters was about 15 kilos. That means for a reef tank with 1,000 liters, if you want to compare to nature, you have to give them every day about 2 kilos of available food. And now think about how many food you give your corals.
My gosh.
Oops. This is a little bit difficult on that way. That's like you give a football star, you say, here you have a small piece of apple and this is good for you the whole day. So that's it. The food is one of the most important things in proteins and stuff. Now I know we cannot give the corals the food in this amount. It's impossible. So I need to say, okay, in this case, I need a little bit more energy in point of the trace elements, and that would be mixed to the trace elements that sometimes are vitamins in, sometimes are organic compounds in. I definitely do not write everything on the bottle because I'm not completely stupid. And and on the other side,
no,
we give
not
them
at all. Not at all, because we take confidence in that. We start to love that even more and use that even more and show the results. And here in Brazil, there's an important characteristic. Aquarists here hate to use things that they do not know how it works. That's one of the main reasons we do this video.
This is all over the world.
Yeah.
Really,
that makes people
in my opinion,
even more.
In my opinion, my personal opinion, I must say I would love to write everything down because there's nothing which is to hide. The other problem is that we have so many companies today which they have no coral farm, they have no ICP, they have nothing. These are copy shops at all. Starting with carbon, zeolite, and a type of salt which everybody can buy wherever, but never go into deep. And you have the other type of companies, and there are some very good companies in the market, which do since 20, 25 years, 30 years development, spend a lot of money working with let me say, universities, and that's that. So my friends from Tropic Marine Example, they work in northern Germany on a other type of coral farm for reproducting. And there we work together because we want to learn about how keep the corals, how make sexual reproduction there. And so we work in a university there and support them. So I do all the ICP stuff, Tropic Marine bring their knowledge in. And so it's not a fight against two companies. So we work very close together to come forward. So, and this is the sense of good companies. But if you write too much down, you will really have the problem that these costs of development, where we do sometimes 4, 5, 6 years, they go out, make the product a half price, and then say, we developed it, we are the first, and this is much better than everything else. So, and this makes it a little bit difficult for us to write everything down. But that's why we do the video, so I can explain, and I'm there open for every question. So if the reefers outside in Brazil have questions, then send it to me, so we can do that more often. So it need not that we need to wait half a year always.